What's up, guys? Welcome back. Just doing a little check in, I guess. We don't really have a whole lot to update as we're still waiting for parts on the Valkyrie. We did mock up some bars and a windshield on it, and you saw that we stripped all the stuff off. So we're kind of waiting for ignition switches and things to come in. And in doing this, we thought, maybe this is a good time to look at when we're looking for an old bike as like a revival. Because this is essentially what we're doing. Not all of these could be restorations or heavily modified customs. Like, we're not rich folks. We don't have the money to like dump crazy amounts of money into some weird bike.
Sometimes we forget that, though.
Well, sometimes you get on a roll. What can I say? But I mean, there's a few things that we wanted to kind of address and maybe kind of give some pointers if you're new to the bike stuff, or you're thinking, I can't get a bike because it's too expensive. They're not all super expensive. I mean, if you're fairly open to what kind of bike it is, of course, Harley stuff is big money stuff. And some of the rare metric bikes are expensive. So it kind of, depends on what kind of bike you're into. I just like weird stuff, so that's cool because typically it's cheaper. Well, I mean, in the Valkyrie case, we did kind of skip a step, and I messed up a little bit. And it's not that I don't ever mess up, and we're just always getting great deals on bikes and like that. I mean,
I have stories to tell you.
So, yeah, I mean, some of the things that we kind of look for, number one, you got to have a title. A lot of them.
Oh, go ahead.
What?
No bill of sale.
Yeah.
Title.
No lien sale packet. None of that jazz. You need a bike with doesn't even have to be a clean title. It could be salvaged. If you're just looking for something cheap to ride, whatever. If you're willing to do some work, is what it is. But you've got to have a title and not 300 people signed off on it and all that kind of jazz. So if you could find something with a clean title in hand, I mean, current registration would be awesome. That brings me to step 2. The second thing you got to look for is back registration. I don't know that it applies to every state or whatever, but here in California, it does. So even with vehicles, if you buy a vehicle that hasn't been registered and the person never contacted the DMV to put it on a planned non-op, and that's another one, don't fall for it's on non-op. You can check on the DMV's website, plug in the last 5 of the VIN number and the license plate number on their website, and it'll give you a fees calculator. It'll tell you if that vehicle is on planned non-op or not. A lot of people will say, it's on non-op. No, nobody ever non-opted it. So unless they have a physical paper from DMV that says on planned non-op, don't believe it, because you could get screwed.
Even when they have the paper, we always check.
Yeah.
Super simple.
It's
we
easy
show
to
up
do.
to look at something. Josh is talking to the person. I plug in the VIN, whether it's car, bike, whatever, plug in the VIN, plug in the license plate, and we know immediately. We've had some circumstances where it shows a ton of fees, and we've been able to talk to the DMV, but we want to at least know going into the purchase what kind of fees we're up against.
Right, because that goes into your overall cost of getting this machine on the road. Whether you're just fixing it up to resell it or you're fixing it up because you want to ride it, it would suck to pour all that money into something you can't even register. And a lot of times the way around that would be to sell it out of state. I mean, it doesn't mean it's a bad bike just because the state has a bunch of somehow back fees on it. There's also a huge myth that after 7 or 10 years it falls out of the DMV system because it hasn't been registered in 10 years. Guys, I'm here to tell you, they will pull up back fees from 20 years ago plus.
Yep.
So something has changed in the DMV, both cars, bikes, whatever. They have records of when that vehicle was last registered, and they will try to get you to pay all those fees. The third thing that we need to look at when looking at some kind of bike to get is the cost. Does it make sense? I mean, obviously you can't pay the going rate of what those bikes are selling for, so it's got to be a deal because you've got to factor in money down the road. I don't care how nice a bike you got, there's going to be things you're going to have to buy. In the Valkyrie's case, it was a complete running bike, and I didn't think anything of it. I went and bought it at nighttime. It was kind of a sketchy situation, so I was trying to get in and out, and in doing so, I missed something that was pretty important: the side covers. One side cover, right by the seat. We'll get to that later. But there's a side cover here, a side cover here in this region, well, down near the seat region. And then there's one in the middle. Those are $400 or $500 for a set on eBay. So the ones that were on the bike are broken and probably
Missing.
can't be repaired. and they are hard to find. So you
Right.
get some of these weird old bikes that the bike's a deal, but the parts for it are super expensive. So that also would be something that you're going to have to look at, and we'll get to that. So the fourth thing is, does it run or will it run? The Valkyrie started up, so I knew it at least turned on. That didn't tell me if it's got a blown head gasket, does it run well, none of that. But those are things that I kind of work on. So I just needed to make sure it turned on and ran, and it did. So in looking for a bike, it is really good if you could find a bike that you can see run. I mean, sometimes they're just, they've been sitting for decades, and
We've brought home plenty that don't run.
yeah, it's a complete gamble. But if you could get it cheap enough.
But you want to make sure the motor turns over at
Yeah.
least, that there's
Right.
oil in it. That's important.
Not water in the oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are things, especially if it's a not running bike, that you want to make sure you check to make sure
Right.
that you'll have less problems down the road. Doesn't mean you won't have any problems, but maybe less problems.
Right. So as long as you know the motor's not stuck, at least, you can pretty much count on any old bike needing some carburetor work. I mean, Harleys are cool because they got one, and I'm pretty decent with that. Then you get into something like the Valkyrie. That sucker got 6. So.
That's probably a skill they should brush up on. Like if you
Yeah.
can pick one skill to watch a whole lot of YouTube on, or talk to your buddies, or learning carburetors is probably the most
Carburetor
important.
rebuilding, and there's tons of videos out there, so we're not going to go through all that. Sometimes you get away with just cleaning them out, but then some of them, the bikes are mega old, like some of these Gold Wings from the 80s. Well, those old seals and rubber and all that stuff is old.
And gas has been in there a long time.
Just eating at it and making it nasty. So, if you have a Harbor Freight near you, I do use their, what is that, ultrasonic cleaner, $70 or so. You can take the carbs apart and cook them in that sucker, and it cleans out the passages. You can see all of these things on YouTube. There are videos, tons of them. That's how I figured it out. And the more of them you do, the better you get at it. So, obviously, if you can find a running bike, sick. You're already headed in the right direction. Make sure it's not missing parts. 9 times out of 10, guys, number 5.
Never fails.
That sucker needs a battery, and I don't know if you bought one, but some of the Harley batteries are $130, $150. Even some of the other bikes. I mean, you can get cheapy Amazon batteries for them and stuff if you're just trying to get it to crank. But always keep in mind, if it ain't running, you'll probably need a battery. And the next thing, the big expensive part that
Always.
almost every bike needs is some tires. Guys, you can't be riding around on tires with the old date codes. You can check one of our other videos where we kind of tell you how to decode the date codes on the tires. Shoot, some of these bikes, they're so old the tires didn't have date codes on them back then.
Just because it's got the hairs on it or the treads
No.
all there, they're
No.
probably going to need to be replaced. And you don't want to be riding it. You don't want to sell it to somebody where it's likely that you're going to have a blowout.
Right.
So tires are always a huge expense for us.
Jeez.
It's funny, like when we find a bike that we want, that's always my first question. What do the tires look like? Does it need a battery? Because those are things. It's $500, really. Any way you slice it.
You could put some Shinkos or something cheapy on it and chance getting some kind of wobble or vibration or something. On a few of the bikes recently, we lucked out. The Valkyrie got tires from 2019. A little bit old, but not terrible. So really, you got to keep in the budget some tires. And probably going to be a battery and maybe some carburetor rebuilding kits, that sort of stuff. Those typically aren't super expensive, but on like the Hondas and a lot of them, I like to buy the Randex kits, which are $250. They're expensive for just seals and gaskets and stuff, but they work right, they fit right, and I have had good results with them. So that's just kind of my take on it. Also, number 6.
How hard are the parts to come by? So we talked about it a little bit on the Valkyrie. Side covers, had no idea. And when you're buying a more common bike, like a early 80s Goldwing, there's parts galore.
Yeah.
There's dismantlers taking them apart.
So they're
they
cheap.
don't have a super high value, so people are just disassembling them and posting their parts on eBay. You can find those parts super easy. But when you're finding a bike that's a little more rare, or a Harley, then you're definitely going to be paying more for your parts. So you kind of want to do a quick, on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, a lot of people put a lot of pictures, which is great. And Josh and I both just zoom in on those pictures, try to see what's missing, try to kind of take a look so that we can price those parts out before we go. Obviously, we did not do that on the Valkyrie,
Yeah, that got me.
but sometimes you're so excited.
Yeah, right. And it was.
We thought we were buying a Honda Shadow.
Right. Right. If they were Honda Shadow side covers, we'd be
Golden.
having things. They repop them. They're cheap. You can just order, set up. No big deal.
Dang it.
So if you're getting a rare, old, weird bike, make sure all the parts is there is what I'm getting at. Also, that brings us to number 7. Is there a market and for that kind of bike? Is it too weird, like a custom-made bike by one dude that maybe nobody's going to buy? Is there market value? So I like to kind of think of things. I always think that I'm going to keep everything forever.
He doesn't.
We know that's not true. But I get emotionally attached whenever I get something and I want to put it together as if I'm keeping it forever. And I mean, that's just how I do it. I don't know. That's just me.
It's good for the person who buys it from us because the love and the attention to detail was definitely there because we thought we were keeping it.
Right.
But it's important to make sure that there is value if down the road you do want to sell it. Maybe you can put some love into this bike, get some money out of this bike, and upgrade to the bike you were really looking for.
Right. Right. You don't always have to get your dream bike step 1. First, you just got to get on the bike.
Make sure you want to be on a bike.
Yeah, right. And this is kind of a cheaper way to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
And
There's
if not, sell it.
so many YouTube videos out there, so much stuff. Even I'm not handy at all. Obviously, I have a great teacher, but I can watch a video and start to learn some of this stuff. So I think that truly everyone is capable of doing it. We lately have been trying to do a lot of our videos with just hand tools, not using our impact, not doing any of that, just to show that a quick trip to Harbor Freight, maybe you can get the things you need if you don't already own them.
Right. Right. It's not that crazy. And there's so many video how-tos on YouTube. I don't even feel like we need to do them because there's already a buttload of good ones out there. If you are looking for one specifically and you do not find it on something, message us in the comments or send us a message of some sorts. Maybe that's a video we could do, or maybe we could try to help you out. I don't know. But most of the bikes are fairly similar. Like, they have so many similarities. We have one motorcycle that we've had for a few years that we did not follow all this information.
Here's what's funny. That bike had new tires and a new battery.
Yeah, it came with it.
Why we bought it.
Ha!
We knew it had back reg, so we did our research there. Yeah. We knew it had back reg. It is registered here in the state of California, so obviously it's compiling, as we did not put it on non-op. It is, it's a Yamaha.
It's like an 89 or 90 Yamaha Venture Royale.
There's no market for that, folks.
They're like $2,000 bikes, all good and running, which is great if you want to buy a bike to ride. I think it's a great bike. However, this one just been sitting in the back of the warehouse for a few years now, which sadly, due to the registration, we're probably going to take it apart and part it out. Because the parts are worth more than the bike if you factor in the registration. On that one, I did not get a title. I got a bill of sale. On that one, it needed some kind of ignition pickup in the bottom end of the motor, which I purchased was a few $100s. Then the computer for it was bad. That was a few $100s. So we are buried in a Yamaha Venture Royale is what I'm getting at. So it was all taken apart when I bought it. The guy said, hey, all the parts are there. Everything you need. Guess what? No, they're not. So I got it mostly back together, bought a new windshield for it, got it to where it ran, but not great, and that's where it's sat. So now it's just going to probably get parted out, which sucks, because that's like our least favorite thing. We have a motorcycle parts business.
Yes.
We sell parts on eBay. And as good as that's been for us, we're motorcycle goobers that like seeing old weird bikes on the road, or I am anyway. So that's what we try to do. That's what this is all about. We're just trying to keep bikes on the road and keep people on them and happy and excited about them. Motorcycling doesn't have to be super expensive. You just got to think about it and do it in a fashion to where you're not spending a ton of money if you're a little bit mechanically inclined. Even not. You can find videos on the internet.
You could give it a try.
Yeah.
Might not be your thing, but for the right price, give it a try.
Right.
I think one of the biggest questions we get, and it kind of goes along with this video, is how do we find the deals? And I think, one, we're constantly searching, both of us, just constantly. And now Facebook specifically knows what we like, so it's constantly telling us, like, hey, look what I found for you.
It's hella weird.
Yeah, so that's one way. But we're both constantly checking, probably too much.
Yeah.
And you got to be willing to swoop. You got to be willing to send a message and get in your car and go. Mm-hmm. We're super fortunate to have a Sprinter van that 9 times out of 10 has a wheel chock in the back, so we're ready and set to go to pick up a bike whenever we find it. Yep. Not everybody has that luxury, but you got to be willing to go, not wait 4 or 5 days and see what happens, or you'll probably miss out.
Right.
Because there's a bunch of weirdos out there like us, waiting to swoop.
Right. We even get people now that are like, hey, do you want this gold wing? How do I say no to that?
There might be something coming, guys.
I don't know. Yeah, so that's pretty much what we had to talk about. Just, yeah, if you have any questions, comments, tips for us, hit us up in the comments. If you could be cool enough to subscribe and like the video if you liked it, maybe hit the little notification bell. We'd appreciate it. We're trying to grow the channel, therefore we're trying to provide more content. Also, let us know in the comments, what kind of videos would you like to see? What kind of information would you like to know? Or, yeah, what should we do?
What should we do?
Hey guys, thanks for checking back with us. We appreciate you.
Peace.
See you next